Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food system storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
Today's program is proudly brought to you by Whole Foods Market. Visit WholeFoodsMarket.com or download the Whole Foods Market app to learn more and find the store nearest to you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Hi, welcome to A Hungry Society, the show where we talk about food, dining, food media, and everything in between. Today's guest is Trish Fontanilla, co-founder of BosFilipinos, an organization that creates Filipino and Asian events in Greater Boston. Trish grew up in New Jersey and now lives in Boston working with Fright Farms, which sells shipping containers that house complete hydroponic growing systems. Trish, welcome to A Hungry Society.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so awesome to have you here. BosFilipinos is such a cool organization. Can you talk a little bit about its inception and how it started?
Sure. So this, it really starts about 7 or so years ago. I was at an event that City Search had put on, and Christine Liu, shout out, who was there.
Christine.
She was the community manager at the time, and I think we had been talking about how post-college, I haven't really run into any Filipinos. And so we were at this event, and she pulls me into this like photo booth and is like, I found 3 other Filipino women. And I was like, okay. So it's super hilarious because there's 2 pictures of me and these 3 women, and we look like we're having an amazing time, and we had just met like
That's
minutes
amazing.
before. And so now that I had these like Filipino posse, we started going to events and finding different like foods and different vendors. And then we eventually started to do potlucks. So if anyone's ever cooked Filipino food, you cannot cook it for under 5 people. You cook it for like your partner, and then you cook it for children in the neighborhood, whatever. So we would all like cook a dish and essentially bring Tupperware to bring leftovers home. So as we started doing that, one of the women that started hosting, her and this other food writer in Boston, so Lila and Bianca, we started talking. We met with a chef who's over at the Milagros Project, and we're like, there needs to be more Filipino things happening in Boston because, Korsha and I were talking about earlier, there's only one Filipino restaurant. It's outside of Boston. Mm-hmm. So you take it to the end of a line and then you walk a mile, and they own an Asian food store. That's their primary source. And the restaurant's kind of a nice to have. So we were like, okay, what can we do without actually opening a physical space to elevate Filipino culture? And so BosFilipinos essentially was born. So Lila, Bianca, and I are running it, and Chef is kind of popping in where he can. So the core of it was we have all these really cool Filipino friends that are cooking food, but we were just doing it for ourselves. And we're like, this is cool, but why don't we share this with other people so that people know more about Filipino food? And there's cool things like Filipino dancing, etc. So it's our way of elevating Filipino culture, food, because we're all obsessed with it, but also doing other things as well.
Yeah, I will say Boston was like sorely missing some Filipino food.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing because we talk about, we're talking about all the different restaurants, like there's Ethiopian restaurants and Moroccan restaurants and all these amazing foods. And it's like, hey, we're not here, we're not represented. So how do we do that in a relatively small scale way, but not just for us? It was really important for me. We were talking about the mission and I didn't want it to be, it's an affinity group, but I want it to be elevating it so other people that are excited about it can get involved as well. Like a lot of our early, I'm in like tech world, so like the early adopters are people from California that are like, how is there not a Filipino restaurant? That was like one of the places I always went to a Filipino restaurant at least once a week. When I was on the West Coast, and I came here and I was like, okay, there's some Spanish food, there's some Chinese food, there's even Indian food. You know, like the different influences of Filipino food. But they are like, where can we get adobo? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you want to come to my house? And I was like, okay, I can't invite everybody to my house. So how do we do this?
So can you talk a little bit about the importance of dining and sharing meals in Filipino culture and what that means?
Yeah, you can't, if you say you're coming to my house, I have to have food, like anything. It's funny because we were having a meeting at Lila's house, and we show up and there's, just like treats out. So we have like dried fish that are like kind of anchovies that you eat and dip in vinegar, and there's biscuits out, etc. We were having a brunch that chef was actually cooking for us, talking about, I was talking about an eat up that we're doing, but he was supposed to cook, and then I brought food, and another one of the ladies brought food, and it's like, wait,
you just had like a full spread, for a casual meeting.
So it's one of those things that anything that happens, like if there's any kind of worship service, we used to have a lot of religious ceremonies. You got to have food. I mean, the religion's important, but you got to have food. But it's just something that is very geared towards family. It's very geared towards sharing. Like when you go to a house, you're like, this food isn't actually for the party. It's for the leftovers that people bring home. Like everyone wants that little piece to send home. So it's really, really core to the Filipino culture. And it was interesting because the ladies and I were so interested in food. I'm like, I know it's so core, but we also need to do other things because I want people to know that we're more than just food. Like our food's amazing, but there's other parts of the culture as well.
So growing up, do you have any like very specific memories of getting together around the dinner table?
Yeah. I think we were talking about this. I was talking about this a little bit. There's a lot of, so I'm first generation. My parents came here from the Philippines. And so a lot of my memories, my father was actually very strict. And so when everyone had to sit at the dinner table at a certain time, you had to like dress in a certain way too.
I was going to ask that, did you have to dress up?
Dress up a little bit. So we had like a pool, and I couldn't go, like, even as a kid, sit in my bathing suit. I had to go and like have a shirt or something that covered my shoulders. There was no reaching over the dinner table.
Oh, wow.
Finish all of your food because you have hungry cousins in the Philippines that don't.
I got the same talk, but it was Africa. It was, there are hungry people in Africa.
So it was funny because I was just thinking about and it's one of those memories that you're like, did this actually happen? Because it just was so long ago. Is because of that. My mom is amazing cook, but she was an overnight nurse in Newark, New Jersey. And so she would cook us an amazing meal, and then she'd work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And so sometimes it was just us kids. If my dad could come home, he lived an hour away. I mean, he worked an hour away from our house. So sometimes dinner time, my dad would try to be there, my mom would try to be there, but sometimes it was just us kids. And because of that guilt of having to eat everything on my plate, I just have this like really vivid memory of my brothers finishing food first and then me not being able to finish, and my brother taunting me and saying, Mom said you couldn't leave the table until you finished everything. No. And then started getting dark. And he just like turned the lights off on me.
Oh, no.
And my dad came home and like turned the lights on. And I was just sitting there like in front of my plate
goodness.
with like a few things in front of them. But it was just like, I don't know, my brothers and I talking about it. It was just so long ago. We're like, did it actually happen? Or do we just have this shared
collective
dream?
memory? Oh.
But yeah, like finishing food, because again, my parents grew up in the Philippines and they didn't have a lot growing up. There was the like walk uphill both ways to get ketchup from, town or the city or something. So just those dining memories of, talking to my brothers. I have 3 older brothers, but also, how important food is, how important not wasting food is.
Yes.
Those were kind of the discussions that we had at the dinner table growing up.
Did you go out to eat a lot, or was it mostly meals at home?
We only went out on like very special occasions. So kind of the Americanized holidays of like Mother's Day and Father's Day. And just when we were when my parents thought we were supposed to go out, we would go out. And we grew up in this very Italian town in New Jersey. And my dad was kind of the worst ever at restaurants, which is maybe actually now thinking about it, maybe is the reason why we didn't go. Because he would walk out of a restaurant and be like, B+, I saw a fly in the corner. And be like, Dad, what?
He was Yelp.
He was Yelp before Yelp,
Yep.
yeah. But there was always this, if you went out to eat, you had to go out to a really fancy place. And he hated dressing up. So there were the restaurants in town and I was talking to someone, I wonder if they still have these where you have to wear a jacket, and he didn't have a jacket. So he would go to this really fancy Italian place and they would have to lend him a jacket.
Yeah.
And he just like hated doing that. So it was always we always had to go someplace really fancy or like Chinese buffet. So it was either like really elevated or, not to say that Chinese buffet isn't elevated, but it was like, all right, this is how much we paid. Let's go for the crab legs because those are the highest priced items. But my mom cooked a lot and we ate a lot of food at home. So
that's amazing. So from that to BosFilipinos,
yeah.
Can you talk about these events and the vision for them and what people can expect?
Sure. So our first event is actually September 25th. And it is around food, of course.
Of course, yeah.
And Chef Roland from the Log Roast Project is actually cooking. He created the menu. We had a little bit of input, but we're like, you're chef, you go to town, you make it happen. And it's going to be a tasting menu. If people are hungry at the end, I will like question who they are. But it's going to be pretty amazing. So that's like one of the first events that we're looking to do is we're all passionate about food. So we're like, this is the language that we can share with others.
Definitely.
And so we're looking to do other events. I would love to do a Filipino dance event because there's some interesting stuff. And one of the women that does some of the potlucks with us, she's a Filipino dancer. So there's a lot of cool stuff around that. And I'm trying to figure out different ways for us to integrate other Asian American immigrant groups in Boston as well, because I don't want us to be this little corner. And there's a lot of other great groups that are doing some cool things out there. So I'd love for us to get together and do things. There's a lot of Asian American film folks. There's artists. There's just so many cool things. And you find out later that they're Filipino and you're like, yeah, that's amazing. So just trying to get the word out there of like, hey, because when you talk about Filipinos, unfortunately, one of the first things people talk about is a lot of the things that are happening in the Philippines right now around the president. And that's like the thing that they take away from, I'm like, oh, I'm doing stuff around Filipinos. I'm like, oh, how do you feel about, these things that are happening to you? And they talk about drug deals and et cetera. I'm like, there's more to us than that. So, I have so many ideas for it. And I think it's the like, okay, rein it in. Like, let's figure out. Because another thing we're talking about is we don't want to be overly educational, like have people come and feel like they're being lectured.
Right.
And I think one of the cool things about the Philippines and the interesting things is so many people have taken over and occupied the Philippines. So we have so many different influences. So when people ask me about Filipino food, for example, I'm like, okay, it's as if Spanish and Chinese food had a love child. Like that's what Filipino food would be. So finding these different ways to meet people and where they are and their knowledge of food, entertainment, et cetera, and kind of infusing Filipino-ness into that through different events, through whether it's food or arts or books, et cetera.
That's a pretty big goal for, like a pop-up series. No, but I think it's great because I think, especially in Boston, there's not a lot of knowledge, like broad knowledge about Filipino culture and Filipino food. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. It's funny because we were debating about the menu and how much text we should have on the menu to explain all the dishes,
right?
Which is
you
such
have historical dates, and
right. And it's one of those
footnotes.
things. And it's funny because chef for this pop-up was born in Chicago. I was born in New Jersey. The other two founders, Lila and Bianca, were actually spent most of their time in the Philippines. And so even our Filipino experience together is different. I just posted where to buy Filipino ingredients in Boston. And I was going through a list from some of the Filipino cooks that were like, here's what we buy. And I didn't know things that were on the list, And it's just like, oh, well, this is a treat we had growing up in the Philippines. I'm like, well, I had Yuhu, you had Yakult, So just the Filipino American experience is like a whole other world besides the Filipino experience, immigrant experience, et cetera. So I feel like we did bite off a lot. But it's really important to all of us. And I think the passion behind this and, getting that knowledge out there it makes it seem less daunting.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back after this.
Today's program is proudly brought to you by Whole Foods Market. Whole Foods Market believes in seeking out local, fresh, and seasonal food and in supporting local farmers, makers, and the community as a whole, economically and agriculturally. Whole Foods Market believes in food that is vivid and colorful, fresh and full of nutrients. Food that connects you to your body, the seasons, and to nature. Food that helps you do more, sleep better, and wake up happier. Found in over 400 locations throughout the United States, Whole Foods Market only sells food that meets their standards, which means no artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, or sweeteners, ever. Whole Foods Market believes in real food. Visit WholeFoodsMarket.com or download the Whole Foods Market app to learn more.
All right, so we are back with Trish Fontanilla of BosFilipinos. And one thing I want to ask you, as a food writer, I feel like I've seen so much lately about Filipino food being like the next cuisine. I'm making air quotes right now. But there's just so much around like Filipino food being trendy or like, the new wave or, all of these different terms. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm such a peacemaker in the universe because I feel like there are a lot of angry people. Like there are a lot of we've always been here. Like our because Filipino restaurants have been around forever and ever and ever.
As long as there have been Filipino people.
Yeah, exactly. And some people have hid behind. Not actually, I don't say hid behind, but some people have tried to do Filipino because, there is this feeling of not being good enough because our identity is so influenced by so many other cultures. So there are these people that are like, ah, and then there's some people who are like, woo, yes, I don't have to cook at home anymore. I can go to a restaurant. I'm clearly on the excited side of the trend. I'm excited that people are recognizing it. It's fun to see that and sending it to friends and having friends send me, this stuff even before BosFilipinos, hey, by the way, this pop-up's happening and being recognized. But I'm excited for the day where it's just like when there's a Boston food festival, it's not a Filipino food festival. We're just there, like it's just part of the culture because there are, it's representative of the population versus let's just have a thing that's just for Filipino food. And it's like, no, let's have a thing for everybody. And there happens to be, a Filipino food restaurant or pop-up, et cetera, that's involved.
So you are pro trend pieces.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more we can talk about the culture and there's just like this interesting ripple effect that I haven't seen before that people don't realize with, when something becomes trendy, then people actually kind of dig deeper and talk about, oh yeah, by the way, there's, the Filipinos are really important in the, farm movement in California, and they worked with the Mexicans, and there's these pieces now about like Mexipinos. So people that are part Mexican, part Filipino, and they talk about, how they came to be and all the different things around that. So I don't know, the more that I see things that and I guess it's like selfish, is we've always been looking for some sort of recognition. I just wrote a piece for BosFilipinos actually about figuring out my Filipino American self. And, when you don't see it, I'm thinking about my godkids and kids these days that look in the media or look to different places and they don't see themselves recognized.
Right.
And for me, like I didn't realize it was essentially okay to be out in Filipino, because I grew up in a predominantly, white town and it's very Italian. So you just ate Italian food and pizza. And I didn't realize that, when I was doing these dinners and things on the weekends that I didn't invite my other classmates too. I didn't realize how much we were compartmentalizing the identity of that. So I get so excited when I see this because I like look at my guy because I'm like, oh, they're gonna like grow up and like see people that look like them in the media doing food things, etc. And it's gonna be super fun. So
they're gonna have representation. They're gonna have something to look at.
Yeah, totally.
That's wonderful. So when you're not cooking or planning pop-ups, where do you like to go eat? What's your favorite restaurant?
That is super tough.
I know people ask me all the time as a food writer, and I have to, like, what occasion and who's with me.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, how are you feeling that day? Do you like want people to like serve you food but leave you alone? Do you want to sit at the bar by yourself? How many people are coming? Do people like to share? Do they have allergies? So my people, I'm just like known for this to the point where they thought I worked there at one point, is Myers and Chang. So it's a spot in the South End in Boston. They have a lot of different Asian cuisines that are there. They've actually started to do more Filipino food specials, which is really awesome. But I've spent my past 8 birthdays I've spent there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have like a frequent diner card? Do they hole punch it?
Yeah. I think at one point it was really funny. When Foursquare was like first happening, I was like the mayor in Foursquare. And I overheard like one of the servers say the other servers, she's the mayor. And someone's being like, what? Like, she's not the mayor of Boston. I'm like, no, I'm the mayor in Foursquare, like a nerd. But I just like, that's my like cheers. I go in, I always know at least one person. Joanne Chang is amazing. She is one of the owners, Karen Akonowitz, who was on Top Chef actually.
Nominated for Beard Award. Several years.
Yeah.
Very
and then
talented.
Vio Roberts, who's there too, who's a chef de cuisine. So I always see at least one of them, and I love the staff. Love the food. I love going there with multiple people. I make everything tapas. So it's funny because we'll like maybe go to a fancy restaurant. I'm like, oh, let's order like a few things and share. And they're like, I don't know if we can do that here. I'm like, we're paying money, so let's make it. But they always make it fun. Like all amazing soundtrack when you're there.
Yeah.
And they just have a good atmosphere when you go and hang out. And I clearly love the place.
Right.
I've gone there.
It is an awesome spot. And I think it speaks to the state of dining right now, that a place like that can exist and be so popular. What do you make of the current state of dining, like modern dining right now?
Yeah. I'm like trying to figure out what do you mean by that?
By like just the restaurant world right now and the different restaurants in it. Do you go out to eat quite a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, which is why it's hard for, I guess, me.
Even in Boston, I think you've seen this move towards less. So like I used to work at Clio in Boston, and it was very fine dining, white tablecloth. And then I remember the day that we got rid of the tablecloths, and it was wood tables, and that was a big thing.
Yeah.
And I think the restaurant world has kind of done the same thing, where, you know, the tablecloths have been taken off. So I'm wondering what you make of that. And as someone who's hosting pop-ups in Boston, what do you see as like the food scene there?
Yeah, I like the accessibility of everything, just making it less daunting. There are just certain things that people, I know when I went to college in Boston, I just ended up staying forever. And you used to like look at stuff online or even in Scatter or whatever and see the money symbols and have that be the decision maker.
Right.
Versus now, I know some people hate photos in restaurants. And a majority of the reason why I take photos is actually when I'm really excited about a place, I want other people to know about it. So it isn't even, maybe there is this like, I ate here vibe, but at the same time, like I'm stoked about this place. I want it to be open for like ever. So let me tell my friends about it, and using social for that. So, I feel like I saw a panel, like a restaurant trends panel recently that talked about, is fine dining out. I think people will always want to have that special occasion place and they'll always want to do that. But you have to appeal to different audiences, and there's the, millennials, there's the Z and et cetera, and making things more accessible. I don't think they need to dumb down anything or like change the service, but I don't know, having these more open, accessible environments and letting people know like, hey, you can come here, because people always want to dress up a little bit and go out to different spots. But I feel like Boston is really, and maybe this is like the places that I go to, is trending towards like group dining. So you're going with, multiple people. If you say State Street Provisions, which is in the Boston waterfront, part of the Grafton Group, which has historically been just on Harvard Square, we ordered a bunch of dishes, and I said like, oh, we're family. We're gonna, I don't know if we're actually family, the people that want to do it. And they, came out with a burger was one of the things we were sharing, and they came out and they cut the burger and they split the fries up and they put a little salad and everything. And I was like, what? Like this far surpassed my expectations of us trying to like become burger sisters and just all of us taking a bite. And like, that's what I was legit gonna do, even the place is like a little bit on the nicer side. I was like, whoa, like it wasn't they're sharing a burger, like travesty. It was how do we make this experience better? And I'm pretty sure the amount of fries that we had was over.
There you go.
the amount of fries that we would have gotten normally.
Yeah.
And so I think smart business people, Patrick Lee, who's one of the owners, were there, like think about these experiences of, okay, they're going to share, and this is good because then they'll come back and have tasted all these different things, and really focusing on the group dining, figuring that out in time. And I know it's a total pain trying to time stuff coming out from the kitchen, and there's some places that are holes in the wall, like Forage is a real place I really love, farm to table place in Cambridge, used to be the 10 table space. And that place is tiny, and so it's like, all right, we want to share these 10 dishes. How do we time those coming out? Like, I'm a fast eater, like she's gonna be waiting while her slow eater friends are nibbling on stuff. But I think focusing on that experience is awesome, and again, I feel like that's my experience, is I tend to go in groups so that I can try everything. But the accessibility of it, the welcoming, and the like not turn your nose up to, okay, they want to share, and it's more like family. I feel like the restaurant industry is like, it's family everywhere, but in Boston, I feel like they show up for each other a lot, and
definitely.
And you can feel that as guests in Boston for sure.
So how did that, like seeing that atmosphere and liking, enjoying eating that way, how did that influence, designing your pop-up event?
Yeah. So our first spot is actually South, which is by Government Center. It's near Boston City Hall. And it's not like a traditional like family dining style where there's long tables. There's actually a bunch of small tables, but everyone's going to be real close and knowing each other by the end. And so when people were asking about our first pop-up, Chef has, knows the people from Sus. They're amazing. They've been so incredible to us. And they're like, oh, are you going to do it in like a really big space that there's going to be like a huge seating? And like, that's not our vibe. Like a lot of, one of the key like words, if we were going to whiteboard, BosFilipinos first eat up was warmth. Like, how do we, portray this warmth? And so I feel like all of our events are going to be small on the smaller end because that's a part of who we are. It's how, we would treat you when you came into our house. And so figuring out spots that are a little bit more on the intimate side, unless we, throw some ragers or whatever. But on the experience end, figuring out that I want people to walk away with new friends, like always, and connecting with people in the city. And that's always been a focus for, I'm like a serial community builder. I have so many like different meetups that I host. And it's because I grew up in the small town and, you could go to your neighbor and if someone had to run out, it's like, hey, can you watch one of the kids for a little bit? Or can I borrow something? And props to living in a cul-de-sac. That's how we lived our lives. So even in like so place as big as Boston, I'm always trying to figure out ways to make people feel like neighbors, feel closer together, feel part of the neighborhood. So thinking about a space like South, which also we just all love, is important too. It's not like we're going to this place because they're, like, hey, like market our place. Like, no, let's pick a place that we all really like and really respect, and have that intimate feel as well. So it's going to be group dining in that everyone's going to be really close together. Chef's going to come out and talk about all the different dishes, which is going to be great. And everyone's going to be tasting things together at the same time. So it is that shared experience of, oh, did you finish that? Or like, that was really good. Do you think they have extra? Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. It isn't this, essentially everyone is going to be close enough to talk to each other versus they're sitting at their own tables away from each other like a traditional restaurant setting. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely incredible. And South itself is just such a cool space.
Oh, yeah.
So for those who don't know, South is this like tiny Belgian frites bar in Boston that's really fun. So you guys picked a really, really cool space.
Yeah, we're Chef's trying to figure out, they have so many sauces.
Yes.
As you may have gathered from the name of the place. And so he's trying to figure out how to work them in a way that respects the food, but they're just so good. I feel like I could have, they have like this truffle sauce that I have with their frites all the time that I could just straight up have like in between as a palate cleanser, maybe in between, which wouldn't be a palate cleanser because truffle would be overbearing.
It would kind of kill your palate, but
maybe at the end, have some frites on the side.
So if you had to have a last meal in a restaurant, where is it and who's there? Who's invited?
So I think if you've listened to anything else I've said today, I don't think I could have I would have to be like a last meal crawl. Has anyone ever said that on the show before?
There has been a 3-part last meal.
Yeah.
It was 3 days.
I'm like, so Boston. I feel like I would get my bike and just like just run the red line and like start and go
Would
to
you
all the
start
places.
in Cambridge and in Alewife and then work your way down?
My like love. So I feel like I would get some pie from Rosebud, which is a diner in Davis Square. And then I would go to Harvard Square and just there's so many amazing restaurants right now. I mentioned the Grafton Group already, so I'd grab some drinks at the Hourly, which is a new like seafood oyster place that's in Harvard Square. There's a flower by there, so I'd pick up some sticky buns.
Would you eat those during the ride to the next spot?
Yeah, people don't realize. And then Waypoint's a really good spot. That Selfo just opened, who does All in Hartle in Harvard Square, and they have amazing crudos. So I would get whatever the crudo was. Jamie Bissonette and Ken Oranger just have a new place called Little Donkey, and they have really good kind of tapas style. I would get a bunch of anything special there.
We're still in Cambridge, by the way. We're not even in Boston proper yet. This is just Cambridge.
Yeah, this is like all the stuff. And then I would go to A4K, which is this like barcade that the folks from Roxy's and A4 open. So I'd have the Justin Burger and have some drinks. Then we go over the bridge. And then I'd essentially make my way to Myers and Chang.
There you go.
And just do like the below out there. But it would be, I don't know, in the past few years, I've had kind of closed birthdays where I'll do like a closed dinner, but I generally like to have just anyone, just invite everybody. Mm-hmm. So anyone that wants to like share a meal that would probably end up, it would start with like 10 people outside of Boston, and then it would just be it would turn into like a walk. And then people would be like, is there a charity? I'm like, okay, let's raise some money. So it'd be weird. I don't know. It's like such a
I
weird.
think that sounds like a great way to go.
Yeah,
I mean, it gets bigger and bigger as you go.
Yeah, we Lila and Bianca and I did a retreat, emphasis on the eat part. when we were working out some BosFilipino stuff, and I wanted the girls to take us to places that you really respected the food, you really respected the atmosphere, you really respected the service. And so we went to a bunch of different places, and we like passed out after like 3 places.
I bet, yeah.
I think the good and bad thing is we started off at Ruckus, which is a new ramen place by the folks that own Chojo. And starting off with ramen's like,
nah, it's so heavy in your
rookie
stomach.
move.
Yeah.
Rookie move.
Yeah.
And Brian, who's there, like sent out some stuff for us, and we're like, oh goodness. It was so good, but then we're like, what do we do now? But I don't know. I can't favorite band, favorite like dinner and all that stuff. It doesn't. Mm-hmm. I'm very much. I'm like a Yelp filter of, okay, so my final meal, like what time of the day is it? What time of the year is it?
Narrow it down by neighborhood.
Is there 10 people there? Okay.
The little dollar signs.
Okay. If some of my friends, like one of my core groups, there's someone that can't do pork. There's someone that can't do shellfish. There's a vegan. There's someone allergic to peanuts. Like, is that happening? Because then
that impacts it.
Because that impacts it. Or am I going with people that can eat everything? Or am I going with people, I've been living there for 15 years now, so I just feel like I have to like filter, and people are like, why are you asking me all these questions? I'm like, trust me, it'll be amazing.
We'll get to the perfect spot if you just answer all of these questions.
Do you want to be on water? Because we can do a water taxi. Like, let's work some stuff out. So yeah, I am, that's like the worst question to ask someone like me.
Well, that is awesome. Where can people find more information about your pop-up?
Yeah, so you can go to the website, BosFilipinos, BosFilipinos.com. Did I just spell? Hopefully I just spell everything. And then we have the same BosFilipinos on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be tweeting and sharing about it everywhere. But yes, it is September 25th. There's 2 seatings. There's one at 6 and one at 8:15 at South, Government Center, Blue Line, Green Line, Orange Line. Hey. All the lines.
Hey.
Accessibility.
It sounded like a chant.
Accessibility. Yeah. And the Boss Filipino founders will be working in front of house. So if you come by, we'll be able to say hello. And Chef Roland will be in the back making all the delicious food. And we're super, super stoked. If you subscribe to the newsletter, we're going to have a lot of amazing stuff coming up in the future. So if you can't make it September 25th at South, hopefully we'll see you at another food event very, very soon.
Excellent. Trish, thank you so much for coming on The Hungry Society.
Thank you for.
It's a joy to have you.
Thank you for letting me evade every question that you asked me.
No, you did great. That was perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.